Welcome, y'all. It's Wes with DIY Food Plot Pro. Thanks for joining us. Today's episode, we're going to talk about what I'm going to plant for food plots in 2024. Many of us had a very tough 2023 deer season. It was extremely warm, windy, and we had a ton of natural food on the ground in the form of acorns. This was kind of the mecca for a disaster of a deer season. When you get extremely warm temperatures, when you get that much of a preferred food source as the acorns we had around here, my gosh, they were everywhere. They're still in the woods. Granted, most of them are beginning to rot by now. A lot of folks will claim that oak trees are only going to produce every other year, and I can tell you with 100% confidence that is a lie. We have had 3 good acorn years in a row here in Western Kentucky, talking about the white oaks. In 2021, we're good. 2022, we're even better. And 2023 topped them all by a long shot. In 2023, this fall, you could not walk in the woods without stepping on white oak acorns. Our woods are about 70% oak. So we have a heavy acorn crop as we did this year. You are talking about hundreds of thousands of acorns in these woods. So much food that whitetails are not ever going to come out in a food plot. They're not going to do it. They're going to stay inside. They feel secure in there, and they have got their most preferred food source. 2023 makes a lot of us rethink our food plot plan. If we had minimal success, we're kind of sitting there in the back of our minds thinking, man, this might not be the plot for me. I planted this brassica plot, and they didn't really hardly even eat it. Or I planted this cereal grain plot, and they didn't hardly eat it. Or standing corn or standing beans, whatever plots you planted. So today I wanted to talk about how I deal with these issues and what I'm going to change, if anything, for 2024. I struggled in 2023 during the gun season. Our food plots were very little help. They were used as little as I have ever seen food plots used. Most oftentimes, we're in high density deer zones. We plant a quality food plot somewhere, and that plot is going to fill up with whitetails during our gun season. It is not uncommon at all for a hunter to come back, say he sat all day, morning to evening on a standing corn food plot, and tell me they saw 40 to 50 deer. That is not an uncommon occurrence here. This year, I had hunters sitting all day, and they come back and they would have seen 2, 3, or 4 deer. That's how much it was down from a normal year. And when it's down like that, we start making decisions that may or may not be justified. So when we're talking about this year, and my standing corn plot was definitely a letdown during the gun season. Now I'm thinking, should I plant less standing corn? Should I switch to something like soybean? Annual clovers did really, really well this year. Should I do away with the corn food plots and just switch to an annual clover? God, it'd be a whole lot easier just to plant some annual clovers in the fall, little cereal rye, and roll on with it. But I think that we have to look at the big picture here. We do the same thing in farming. Many of you know I'm a full-time farmer as well. It's really, really difficult to separate your feelings from a one-time occurrence. During a drought year where we don't make a lot of corn, now we realize that it's not that particular variety's fault, but we still have a bad feeling towards that corn. That corn didn't make nothing. Even though it didn't rain all year, we still kind of have that feeling of, I don't think I really want to plant that again. And we do the same thing in food plotting. We had a tough year, and so now all of a sudden a lot of us are beginning to change or thinking about changing our food plots next year. So I think that's very common for us to do, and I think that's a healthy choice for us to do for our food plots. One thing that I would encourage you to do, or what I'm going to do, is I'm going to make that decision over a wider time length than just 1 year. A lot of things happened last year that were negative to food plots. A lot of things happened last year that were negative to whitetail hunting in general. We're going through one of the mildest winters that we've ever had. We have standing corn by the hundreds of bushels in these standing cornfields. By anybody's reasonable expectations, why would we plant more corn next year? Why not cut the corn back and plant half the plot in something other than corn? For me, that's not what I'm going to do, because I have seen this how it normally is. And if you're just diving into food plots, or you're just diving in, to say corn or soybeans or brassicas, and they didn't really hit it this year, I would encourage you to go with it another year. and to try it again, because when we get to more of a normal crop of acorns, more normal average temperature that's much cooler than it was this year, I think you're going to see your food plots get utilized a lot more than what they did this year if the food is secure. I released a video last week talking about having secure food sources. If your food's not secure, if they don't feel comfortable coming in here, you're never going to do any good on your plots, except for just chance that a buck chases a hot doe, throws caution to the wind, and he just comes flying out in the middle of the food plot chasing her. Anything can happen during the rut during that spell, but I'm talking about kind of outside of that, where a buck feels comfortable in here. If you don't have that security for him in that food plot, he's not coming in there during the daylight hours. If it's pressured enough, he will just abandon the food plot completely. Or he will only come in late at night, nocturnal, midnight, 1, 2 a.m. He's not going to get here even close to shooting hours. So all of that kind of plays in to these food plots and how we're hunting them, what success we're having with them. I don't want to force you guys into planting different food plots. If you're having good luck planting clover, by all means, continue to plant clover. If you're having good luck planting some cereal rye and some brassicas, by all means, plant some cereal rye and brassicas. If you're having good luck with it, there's no sense in changing it. I think it's very critical not to look at last year and say, well, I planted 3 acres of corn and they only ate an acre of it. I'm only going to plant an acre next year. And I think many of us that have been food plotting for long enough, we understand the issue with that, right? We understand that in a normal year, we had a really good corn crop this year. We probably made 175 bushel corn across the food plots. 175 bushel at 3 acres in some plots, 2 acres in others, 2.5 in others. That is a ridiculous amount of corn. You're talking somewhere close to 500 bushel in that range. Say 50 pounds a bushel, it's actually 56, but you're talking about 25,000 pounds of corn being in that food plot. Tremendous amount of food. This year they didn't eat it. The acorns started dropping in September, October, November. Acorns were still raining. Those deer were not in these food plots. They were in the woods. So you had several months where these whitetails were not eating it. This has been the very first year that I've ever made it through a full deer season on every corn plot that I have and still had grain left. Most of the time, I'm like biting my nails like, oh gosh, I hope there's going to be enough to hunt this last hunt. Matter of fact, in the years past, I've increased the amount of corn acres trying to feed these whitetails. And if you didn't see those years and you just saw this year, you might jump to conclusions and say, you know what, I'm just going to plant an acre of corn out here. That's all I'm planting. I'm not planting 3 acres this time. They didn't eat it last year. I'm just planting this 1 acre. It's going to be good enough. On a normal year when the acorns don't drop like that, they're going to have that 1 acre ate so fast it's not even going to be funny. And then you're going to be forced with hunting over whatever you interseeded into that corn crop. For 2024, I'm sticking to my guns. I'm still going to plant the same things. I'm going to plant a lot of corn. I am going to add some beans this year. I had a couple small plots of soybeans, but next year I'm going to expand on that a little bit, and I'm going to try to get some actual beans for production. I hope to plant some forage beans. I would like to plant a plot by itself in forage beans where I could take care of it and see how those beans resisted those whitetails compared to the ag beans. I would also like to plant 1 food plot into the release system. I'm going to interseed a lot of these plots, soybeans and corn. When areas where they start thinning that stand down, say maybe in a corner, I'm going to add some brassicas around the 1st of August for me. Give me that 75 to 90 days before a frost to get that bulb production. I'm going to plant some cereal grains. I'm going to plant some annual clovers just like I did this year. I'm excited about the 2024 deer season. I think we're going to be set up well. A lot of folks kind of get upset when they have a lot of food left and they're thinking, man, it's going to be a nightmare. I can't believe I planted all that food. But the way I look at it, that's beneficial to them. If they don't eat it, that means they have enough food, and that's a great thing. For us as land managers, that's the whole goal. We don't want every single stalk of corn to be ate down. We don't want every piece of woody browse up to 6 feet tall to be browsed down. We don't want to see deer browsing on things that are not very beneficial to them because they're out of woody browse or they're out of food or they're out of the cereal grains. They've ate them all the way down to the ground and there's nothing growing back. As whitetail managers and as food plotters and as landowners, we want to see leftover food. It's not a bad thing that we have leftover food. Now, Ideally, we would only have a little bit of leftover food coming into this time of the year. March or April, we would only have a little bit of food left instead of a very large amount of food left, but still, it's a great problem to have that we have food left over for these whitetails. That's not a bad thing. I'm gonna continue food plotting. I'm gonna put just as much work or more in to the 2024 food plots as I did in 2023. Hopefully we have a little more average growing season, can get some more timely rains, and maybe not the 10, 11 inches of floods. And hopefully we're gonna have a good crop of food for these whitetails to eat and be able to sustain them through the winter time and to be able to express that full potential in their rack for the following year. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Smash that like and subscribe button if you hadn't already.